It was a cold winter night when Officer Rahim received an urgent call from the city's crime branch. A murder had been reported in a house at the far end of the street. The situation was unusual, almost impossible. A man was found dead inside a locked room, with no sign of forced entry or exit. When Officer Rahim arrived at the crime scene, he was greeted by Inspector Zubair. "This case is baffling," said the inspector, shaking his head. The victim was shot in the forehead, but the door was locked from the inside, and the windows were sealed shut. There's no weapon in sight either. Rahim walked into the dimly lit room. The victim, a middle-aged man named Mr. Kamran, lay motionless on the floor. His eyes were wide open, frozen in fear. Blood had pooled around his head from a single bullet wound. The only door to the room was locked from the inside. The windows were also locked, and there were no openings big enough for someone to escape. There was no gun or weapon found near the body. "If it's a murder," Rahim muttered to himself, "how did the killer escape? And if it's a suicide, where is the gun?" Just then, one of the officers found something strange: a broken mirror on the floor. The glass pieces were scattered near the victim. Rahim's eyes narrowed as he took a closer look. Rahim examined the floor and walls carefully. Then, his eyes fell on the ceiling fan. It was slightly tilted, as if something had been tied to it. Suddenly, a thought struck him. Could this have been a cleverly planned murder? He turned to the inspector. "I think I know what happened," he said confidently. The killer had set up an elaborate plan. Here's how the crime was committed. The murderer tied a gun to the ceiling fan using a thin rope. The victim was forced to stand directly under it. The killer activated a delayed trigger mechanism, likely using a string or a tied weight. As the gun fired, it killed the victim. The sudden recoil caused the gun to swing upward. The gun hit the mirror, breaking it. Then, the gun fell into a hidden compartment behind the cupboard, where the murderer had prepared a small opening. The trick made it look like a locked room mystery. The missing weapon confused the police, leading them to believe it was an impossible crime. Rahim smiled and walked towards the cupboard. "Let's check behind here." As the officers moved it aside, they found the missing gun. Carefully hidden, the case was solved. The murderer had tried to outsmart the police, but no crime is perfect when investigated with sharp observation.